And welcome back to Hot and Cold Podcast. It is me, Sam. Along with me is Connor Lockyer. We have a special guest joining us at the end of the show. It is somebody we've had on before. It's our good friend. It's Tyler Tachman. He works with the Hoosier Network with us. We're co-employees with the guy. He works for Inside the Hall for basketball. He works for Hoosier Network for football. I forgot to give his plug before the interview to that because he's on so many freaking sites, but it's a great interview. He's our age. He's killing it. Sometimes I look at us and we're thinking like, all right, we're definitely excelling for our age. And then I see him and I'm like, okay, we're hacks. But no, I'm joking. I'm joking.
We're like halfway. We're like we're the middle ground.
No, but he's a great interview. He's a great guy. But yeah, we love having him on. And before we get into too much of the episode, I want to shout out our sponsor, Adrenaline Shock. I had an A-Shock today. Guess which flavor I had?
Okay, so I wrote it down last time that you had orange freeze.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm guessing it's changed because it changes like every episode.
Right.
So what's the blue raspberry one? I'm going with that one.
Blue raspberry, best one. No, that in power rankings, you have number one. Yep,
that's changed because orange freeze was number one.
Orange freeze was like the perennial because I think it went 2 episodes in a row. So now we're on to blue raz. So you might want to mark that down as your statistic. Oh yeah, okay, yeah. So now let's kind of get into it. Connor, how you doing today?
Pretty good. I'm just gonna apologize up front for my lack of ability to ask questions during the interview at times because I was moving from room to room. There were people in my house. Got a little hectic. People were in and out of the room that I was in. Mm-hmm. So just gonna apologize up front for that.
This, if any, I'm not telling you to turn this off, but if you wanted to, I would probably pause this and go straight to the YouTube because this is an all-time YouTube episode. Just seeing Connor just kind of teleporting room to room. It's pretty great. It's a great thing to watch. So
yeah, it was bad. Like I left my phone behind, which also had the questions that we were asking.
Yes.
And I was freaking out. People were like, oh, it was not good. I was sweating and then I was outside sweating.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you were in a sweatshirt and it was a notably hot day today. It was like 92.
Sunny. Not good.
Notably hot. And I mean, you forgot a certain player's name. Just watch out for that.
It's bad. I'm not going to ruin it because it was embarrassing. I was like, and the guy that we were talking about,
the guy that we were just having an extensive conversation about. Yeah. No, that's fine. That happens.
Yeah.
Look, I'm not going to blame you for that because I've definitely had some, crazy stuff happen to me while I'm recording. So no big deal. And kind of getting to the episode a little bit. 3 days ago, I think it was 3 days ago. Do you remember Dino Gaudio? He got in trouble for extorting Chris Mack when he got fired. Yep. And the evidence came from Chris Mack secretly recording the firing, which was odd in itself that he kind of like predicted that was going to happen. Maybe he just records all of his firings for, liability purposes. But something came from that. So in the court trial, Dino Gaudio, he pleads guilty. And then he alleges that Chris Mack was threatening to rescind players' scholarships, that the players that he recruited in. Now, if you don't know college basketball too well, that's kind of like the golden rule that you don't really do. When you recruit somebody and you offer them a scholarship, you're supposed to have done your homework. You're putting your trust in the kid. And when they come in, you cannot just take it away from them for playing bad. And by the way, and you can't just put all of the blame on the player's shoulders because no matter how good of a coach Chris Mack has been in his career, no matter how, prestigious he was in Cincinnati, that's a bad look. That's a bad look, and that will ruin your reputation immediately. And people will not want to go to your school. If you are threatening to rescind your scholarships. That's going to destroy you in recruiting. But it said it is a pretty funny thing because it wasn't after a loss. It wasn't after anything like that. It was after, strangely enough, it was after the selection show. Now, the selection show, obviously, it's like the official, you're not going to be in, blah, blah, blah. But that is not something, that is not a day to get mad at your players. The workload has been done. So you'd think if he was going to be that passionate about it, he would have done it after their last game. But he waited until after the selection show when your workload is there. You know what your workload is going to be. You knew how they would judge it because you've obviously been around the corner a few times. You've been, or I've said Cincinnati, I'm sorry, Xavier. You've been around the corner with Xavier. So, like, I mean, it's there. So, what do you think about this?
I mean, Louisville already struggles I would say they struggle in recruiting, but like, I know we had Jake Weingarten on and he was talking about like how they haven't gotten a 5-star yet since he's taken over. Mm-hmm. And it was looking like they might. And now, I mean, they haven't yet. And this was the class they were potentially going to. And so they haven't been recruiting well to begin with. Now you're going to do this? Like, that's not going to sit well, obviously, with your coaches, who's doing a lot of the heavy lifting in the recruiting as well.
Yeah.
And that just doesn't, it's not surprising. This program has been kind of,
it's cursed.
It's been in turmoil and cursed. Yeah. And since he's been there.
And all right, there's a couple things I want to unpack with this conversation. I have like 2 or 3 points I want to get to. Number one, the first point, if he knew, and I'm sure the Dino Gaudio decision, I'm sure that wasn't just on a whim, okay, you're fired. I'm sure there was some thoughts in his head of firing him at that time. So the guy, well, maybe not, but the guy who is against you the most on this, the guy who stood up, according to the trial, the guy who stood up and said, hey, you can't rescind player scholarship. You promised him this. Why in hell would you still fire him? Because he is going to come out and just talk it up about that. If you fire him and you did that, like, he has the ultimate dirt on you. So there's one. If you cross him like that, he's going to cross you. That's just how it goes.
Definitely.
And then number 2, this has a lot of validity, and no matter, like, because I'm sure people are doubting what Dino said because there's no hard evidence, but this has validity because if you remember right when the season ended, there was people decommitting from Louisville. There was people transferring out. It was like a mass exodus from the Louisville program, and everybody's like, what in the world is going on over there? So that is big. There's validity behind that. So I just wanted to say those couple of things because as a Kentucky fan, this is something I get very excited for when a Louisville scandal happens, and it happens a lot. Trust me.
Recently, yes.
It recently, even more. You go back. I don't know when the Italian restaurant Rick Pitino thing came out, but that was that was like. That seriously, when you think about it, that might have been the first domino to fall because it was that, and then it was the strippers in the dorm, and then it was paying Brian Bowen on literally probation, and then he gets fired, and then you hire the nice guy, and then the stuff doesn't stop, and then the video of him talking about Calipari and how he needs campaign.
That was so weird. You think Dino is the one that leaked that? Like secretly, that's what started all this?
Maybe. And then
you know what?
What's that?
Because that makes sense now. Me just putting that together because Cal released that letter supporting Dino and saying he's a great guy. I bet he leaked that to make Mac look bad.
Maybe. Dude, it's funny because like Louisville, I don't remember if it was the same offseason or if it was within like the year of it. They hire in football and basketball. They hire what looked like 2 home run hires. It really did. Like, because they hire Scott Satterfield from Appalachian State. They have had a ton of success. I think they beat Michigan maybe It was a good team. They beat them. They were ranked after one season. They went to a big bowl, and so they hire him. He's out, and they think he's a great coach. Louisville has been notably terrible over the past couple of years with him.
Not good.
Yeah.
Not good.
Then they hire Chris Mack. And every Kentucky fan had the same reaction. They were like, well, that sucks because I don't hate him. They're just like, I want a Louisville coach that I can hate. And he's become a terrible person. They had a terrible coach. And Matt Jones actually said something that stuck with me. He said when Louisville made that hire, as Xavier fans or Xavier people in Xavier, they were like, Louisville's going to love him until they get to know him. So there's something with Chris Mack, and I would love to get to the bottom of it. He seems like the nice guy. He seems like the guy. He's hard to hate or whatever, but he is just not great. This is an anti-Chris Mack podcast on my end. I don't know about you.
I have a serious question.
Okay.
How many times? Because I know Louisville made the tournament at least one time since he got hired. Is that the only time? Or
did he? I was thinking.
I thought he made it. I thought he made it with that class that he inherited with like Jordan Ora and the other like upperclassmen on that team.
Well, all right. So here's the thing. When did he get hired? He got hired in 2018. Okay. So that was the 2018-2019 season. So yes, he's had to have one. Or did they make it that year? This is seriously something I'm blanking.
They had to have made it at least 1 year. Like it leads me into this question because like he inherited that class that legitimately was not his. Like it was not his class, and he hasn't been able to recruit since. Okay, so what year did he get hired?
He got hired in 2018.
So he's had
but all right, so he finished the 2018 season with Xavier. He got hired he was the coach during the 2018-2019 season. I don't know if they made the tournament that year.
It looks like they did.
Okay, then yes, he's made one tournament because I was saying they had that
They would have made it twice because I think the 1 year was the COVID year too.
Yeah, they had a really good team that year.
That was the good year.
Jordan Wara, yeah.
Yes, that was the year with him. And like Enoch and Ryan McMahon, like David Johnson was a freshman.
They had a really good team.
Yeah. Which is fine. But again, those weren't his guys. Like he just kept them, which is awesome. But like Jordan Ora and Enoch were not his guys. They
wasn't as easy to transfer back then, though.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I like what's the point that he has to get fired? Like this next year? Like if he doesn't make the tournament, like
I think it's hard. I think if you're gonna have scandals like this, I think the right place to be is Louisville because like they're at the point where they kind of have to be a little bit accepting of that and a little bit
which
lenient,
is crazy,
which is weird, right? Like because it's weird. It would to be lenient about that, like it's bad look, but like they would be cycling through coaches every year. Like I don't know why, but Louisville just attracts scandals, and it's weird, man.
They've had one season since 2001, 2002. No. Yeah, one season. It was last year because it was a shortened season. They have not 20 plus wins every year.
Yeah.
Like it's they are a successful program.
Yeah, like if you're ranking best programs ever, whatever, like Louisville's in that top 8, probably top 8, top 6, maybe. Like they're almost a blue blood. Like they're on the edge of blue blood, but they
if you go off revenue, they definitely are. We talked about that.
Yeah.
They're like second, which is I did not believe, but I guess the Yum Center and all that stuff. But I just don't think he's a good coach. I'm with you. I thought like it. I don't know. At Xavier, I didn't like him, but I thought he was a good coach. This has like he's like Archie, but with allegations.
Yes,
it's very
seriously.
weird. Like they both have like epically failed going to a bigger school and being in like in a bigger conference and having more responsibilities. I don't know. Like maybe he's just a dude that does not belong at a school like Louisville.
Well, how about this? So, you go through. There's three Ohio coaches that made the jump around the same time. It
Yeah.
was Archie Miller, it was Chris Mack, and it was Mick Cronin. So,
Mm-hmm.
out of the three, Chris Mack and Archie Miller were the two most likable because like people had beef with Mick Cronin because those Cincinnati teams people hated. I remember in that 2015 season, Kentucky played that Cincinnati team in the second round. And it looked like the Cincinnati team was trying to like hurt the Kentucky guys that were playing so physically. And I remember people had big complaints with how Mick Cronin coached. So how about those three guys take a step up in coaching jobs?
Yeah.
The one that succeeds is Mick Cronin. And the one that succeeded in a big way, and the other two are one got fired, and the other is maybe on the precipice of getting fired. It's a wild thing, man.
Like I'm looking at Chris Mack's, which to be honest, he had some really good seasons.
Mm-hmm.
Like the last year at Xavier, they finished
they were
in the final
1 seed,
they
right?
were third in the AP poll. Like they had Trevon Blewett, they had JP Makara.
Was Edmund Sumner on that team, or was that too late for him?
That might have been too late for him.
Yeah. But yeah, I get the point.
That team, it's like, geez, I mean, Dayton was never like that good under Archie, top three, but it's weird. Like Mick Cronin never really had like that much success at Cincinnati. I mean, they had some good teams. I don't were they ever like top four?
Never. They may have gotten to a 4 seed, 3 seed in that.
Something like maybe, yeah.
Yeah, and they've
especially
had some
UCLA
players.
though.
Yeah,
I didn't think he would be able to recruit.
I mean,
like
one goes to Louisville, who's been great over the past years. One goes to IU, who's obviously it has the history, it has the tradition, it has the fan base that cares. And one goes to UCLA, where the fan base doesn't really care, and they haven't been good since a long time ago. And well, I mean, it's weird, man. It's crazy. It's crazy.
I will say this. I think Mick Cronin has surrounded himself with a better staff.
Mm-hmm.
And that has definitely helped him. Like Archie's staff, pitiful until he hired Kenya Hunter. And that was only in the last year. Chris Mack's staff, obviously is not good. Like clearly some issues between like
he hired Bill Murray's son.
So,
he hired Bill Murray's son. So there you go.
Just not good at all. And you can get away with that, I feel like, at a smaller school because they're just better. Like at least Archie and Chris Mack could recruit better than the other coaches in those conferences because if they couldn't, that's pretty embarrassing. Yeah. So
it's a weird thing, man. It's a weird thing. And it's a curse. Like Louisville can hire the most clean guy, the guy with no record whatsoever, and it's going to end up in some sort of lawsuit at the end of the day. Always. Yeah. Always. So kind of moving on into recruiting a little bit because we're a recruiting podcast. If you didn't know, we know the ins and outs. We talked to guys that were on Sources Say, so we can get into it. So there's a player, and we've talked about him so much recently because I think we're on commitment watch. And it's Shaedon Sharpe. He is number 1 player to On3 Sports. I think I said that in the last podcast. I think he's number 6 in 24/7. And it's kind of arbitrary. In the composite, whatever rankings you want, at the end of the day, like you make your decision. You just watch your players. You make the decision on your own. Matt Norlander came out and said that Shaedon Sharpe to Kentucky is the lock of all locks. That's all right. So before we get into that, he goes on that ESPN article with Jonathan Givney and tells him, I don't know where all this Kentucky lock stuff came from. I guess it's because I played with UPlay and Shea Gilgeous-Alexander played with them. I don't know. It's completely wide open, so I don't want to say that. And then this comes out like maybe 2, 3, 4 days later. And it's just like Matt Norlander is an extremely credible source. And he is seemingly putting his reputation on this because you don't just come, you can say, yeah, he's a Kentucky walk. And there's still there's a hint of, if he doesn't, you're fine. Like it was just a mistake. Like he got lost in the tea leaves. But if you're saying walk of all walks, that's saying something. That is
Yeah.
absolutely saying something. So, Connor, how do you feel about that? Because because a while ago we were talking off air and you were kind of just like, man, I hope he burns Kentucky. Man, I hope he
It would be
does.
funny.
It would be funny, but what do you think about this?
I I honestly probably I'd not say that I expected it. We talked about this class
Mm-hmm.
and like they already have Sky Clark. And you were like saying so it's like Case and Wallace,
Mm-hmm.
Shaedon Sharpe, Derek Lively, Nick Smith is another one that they're
Adim Bona.
heavily involved with. Yes, he's another one. Like I said, they're probably gonna get three, not counting Sky Clark. So Shaedon Sharpe is obviously one. Like there's only so many they can get. I feel like I'm
Yeah.
hoping.
Yeah.
So go ahead and cross him off the list. He is he's coming. I guess I feel like that. I will say I feel like that rules out Case and Wallace, right? Like same
No,
position.
no, I don't
Really?
think it doesn't rule out him. It's kind of
Why?
like this. I think so for the backcourt pieces, you got Sky Clark, right? I think what Cal is trying to do, I don't think he's trying to overload this roster too much with freshmen because I obviously he wants it to be like kind of half freshmen, kind of half transfers. He's trying to kind of get into that mold a little bit. So Sky's number one. That's for your backcourt. I'm saying they get Shaedon. And then what I'm hearing from everybody else, what I'm hearing from Jack Pilgrim, Sean Smith, is they get one of the two of Case and Wallace and Nick Smith.
But why?
Because here's what I think Cal is trying to do. I think at the end of the day, if he decides to go kind of freshman backcourt, I think he loved what he had with Tyrese Maxey, Emmanuel Quickly, and Ashton Higgins. He loved that. And I think if he gets I think he prefers Case and Wallace. And if he gets him, it's Kaysen is your Ashton Higgins. He's your defensive lockdown. When Ashton was at his best, he may have been the best perimeter defender in the country at that point. So Kaysen Wallace gets in there to be your defensive lockdown. That can also he can score, but that's not what he's going to be asked to do. Sky Clark's already there. He's your kind of ball handler. He can do a little bit of everything. And then Shaedon Sharpe is probably the best scorer in this recruiting class. If they get Nick Smith, that's when it gets weird because Nick Smith is not the player Casey Wallace is. I think they've secured Shaedon and Sky. That's why I'm saying it's between Casey and Nick. But I think Nick's game is very close to what Shaedon's is, which is kind of concerning.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's a great scorer, great shooter. He's a guy that wants to be at Kentucky, and it's hard to turn that down. But I think if they get Kaysen, I think it's too overloaded, and then they have to turn one of them away. So it's kind of like who wants to come first is going to be there. So that's what I'm hearing. That's what I'm hearing from all the other writers and everything. That's not my personal opinion, but I think that's the direction he wants to go in. And it'll get interesting because I think, like I said, I think Cal's trying to make this the building block of a roster and then fill the rest of it with transfers and returnees. But you don't want to promise starting jobs to all three of these guys because you can get a transfer. There can be a guy that transfers, puts his name in the transfer portal. Like pick your poison, pick a random, veteran guard at a smaller conference that wants to go to a blue blood. And then Cal will get interested in him. So it's hard to do that and promise all these guys spots with where we're at right now. And say one of these guards, and I know all the guards on the team have like less than 1 year of eligibility left because they've been in college for so freaking long. But say Severe Wheeler wants to come back to college or something. You can't just bench him out of like if he's better than these guys. So it's kind of hard. You're playing a game of push and pull there. And that's what Cal deals with every year. So I'm not too worried
Does
about
he
that.
handle it well?
I think he handles it about as well as you can. Sure. Yeah. No, for sure. I get it. But like there's always going to be people that kind of make him look bad. But when you are dealing with so many guys and so many different personalities, it's kind of hard to be bat 100% or bat what is it, bat 1,000?
Bat 1,000.
Did I just say bat 100%? That baseball guy, hand up. But yeah, it's just kind of hard to do that at the end of the day. So I don't know.
I don't think they're going to get Lively, and it's going to be one of a Dembona or Lively, right? Like, can't get both of those guys.
I'm hearing it could be both of that too, and which I don't understand.
They can't play together, right?
They can't. I personally don't think they can, but it's one of those things. It's like, don't sign up for what you were, flirting with. Don't sign up for a Kofi and Oscar pairing every year. Like that was a special thing. That would be disgusting with people that aren't good enough. Like, I think they prefer Derek Lively. And then I think that's obvious. I think everybody prefers Derek Lively, to be fair.
Yeah.
Something that may have hurt them, though, was when it was a really bad look when they kind of threw their hat in the ring on Kyle Filipowski in the last week when it was, obvious he was going
very
to do.
Interesting.
Yeah.
When they basically like have been recruiting these other guys and then just all of a sudden threw out an offer. Like that's just weird. I don't know. Yeah. I know he's a riser and he's like a 5-star now by like every ranking, but that seemed weird. Offered late.
But go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, you're good.
Well, I said this a little bit with the Duren commitment when we were talking to Sean Smith. But I think like when you do that with Filipowski is you kind of make a Lively or a Bona kind of feel unprioritized, like when you throw an offer at Filipowski, Lively will be like, but I thought I was being prioritized over all of these guys, which he should be, because Lively is on every recruiting ranking, everything is a better player than Filipowski. And I get like Filipowski has a different skill set and they're different players, but you prioritize that kid. Because look, if Kentucky gets Shaedon and Lively, there's a high possibility that those are 1-2 at the end of the day. And it'd be amazing, not just for the roster, but for the look, for the aesthetic of, the recruiting rankings.
Too much pressure.
If Cal went 1-2, he's back. No, but that's what I'm saying. If Cal went 1-2, he is back in the recruiting ranks.
Doesn't matter if you don't win, though, right?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. But for the looks of recruiting, Cal hasn't gotten the number one player in a class since Scalabissier. If he comes out and does that, he's back 100%. So
I think if he does that, it's obviously a good thing, but trying to be the balancing act here and be the pessimist, that one puts a lot of pressure on him. And like, say he does, it's kind of like the Penny thing. Like Penny's probably going to get a Money here, and if he does, like, it's like, all right, man, you got to win now. Like, you got Amoni, you got Duren, you've got a really talented roster. It's gonna be the same thing for Cal. Like, he's got to win.
He has a championship under his belt, though, and I don't know how long that lasts for him, but it lasts for a while. When you have the most wins of anybody in the country since of the last decade, you have all these accolades. It's hard to just like say, well, you got to win now.
He's past his prime if he doesn't, right?
Maybe, but I think this is a step in the right direction. Like, I mean, all you can ask for is, and I know this is something I am 100% being a hypocrite on. Like, I mean, we're living right now, so you gotta kind of look at it like, well, I mean, was he supposed to turn down the number 1 and 2 players in the country? Like,
Oh yeah,
yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, and that
he
would be a
just
great offseason. But
yeah.
yeah, I agree he has to win. But I'm just saying it's a little bit different between Penny Hardaway
Oh
and
yeah,
John
yeah. I know,
Calipari in that aspect. But yeah, I get what you're
definitely.
saying though. I get what you're saying. That last year definitely hurt John Calipari's credibility. It did. No matter how many accolades you have, you go 9-16. Let's just hope it's not a trend in the wrong direction, because that would hurt me to the core. That would absolutely hurt me to the core. But
Oh, that would
uh,
be funny.
another name that we're on commitment watch for, actually, we're seriously on commitment watch because Shaedon Sharpe said that he is planning on late August. He wants to commit before his high school practices start. So another guy that actually set his commitment date, uh, August 24th for, I guess, Kobe Day. I'm assuming. Is that what he came out and
Yeah,
said?
he's got mama mentality type of thing.
Gotcha. So he set his recruitment date or his commitment date. He has 1 or 2 visits under his belt. Obviously, one being IU, or else I probably wouldn't have brought it up. And it is Jalen Hood-Schifino. So we
This
talk.
guy's teammate.
Yes, yeah, we talk a lot about him with Tyler Tachman in the second segment, but Connor doesn't really get his opinion off there, so I'm gonna let him. We're time traveling, which is weird because
A little
like
bit, yeah.
it's hard for me because when we do these interviews, they're usually before we record the intro, and then we kind of go off that. But I'm kind of foreshadowing something that hasn't happened for you guys yet. So it's weird. It's a weird time travel situation. But Connor, what is your thoughts on the kid and his recruitment?
Uh, it's important. Like at one point, it was very doom and gloom. You know, IU lost out on 2 guys. And it was like, all right, it was kind of surfacing like, where's IU turning next? And it was like reported, and there's pictures that like all of the staff was at Hood-Schifino's games. It's like, okay, clearly they're all in on this guy. They need a point guard to go next to CJ Gunn, I'm assuming. So this is going to be important for them. And it was good that he took, I don't know if it was an official or unofficial, but he took some type of visit, and then he's canceled the rest of his visits, I'm guessing. Like he planned on taking them and then canceled them. So that seems like a good sign. I saw today Kenya Hunter is leading the recruitment in that. So he's been kind of on a roll lately.
Yeah.
It's important, man. They got to get him. Like if they don't get this guy, and it's not like it's going to be easy. Like they've got some good schools that they're going up against. I think Tennessee is probably the other one that's been mostly involved, as much as IU has at least. So, I mean, they got to get him. They're really running out of people. If they don't get him, like I don't know where they turn from here, like guard wise. So, but yeah, I'm not going to say that IU's getting him because I have no clue.
Yeah.
But I would say that things are like, if you read the tea leaves and see what's kind of happening, like a guy doesn't just cancel his visits in the fall if something didn't happen. So
yeah, that's true. But yeah, I mean that's interesting because I'm gonna get weird here if that's okay.
all
Because
right.
I don't have a lot to speak on Hood-Schifino's game really. I think if he I think if he goes to IU, I think he's doing a disservice to himself. Now let me explain why.
Oh, okay.
Let me explain why. IU has the jerseys with the no name on the back. Hood-Schifino is an all-time name on the back of the jersey. I think he's missing out on that opportunity because of
Which
that.
IU should change that, by the way. That needs
For
to
him.
happen.
For
like
him.
It should happen. Yes.
No, but in all seriousness, like when you see like Shea Gilgeous-Alexander on the back of a jersey, it's kind of cool to see all those letters on the back of the jersey. It's like a great, cool aesthetic to have. And I keep saying the word aesthetic. Like this is what I do. If I say a word that's odd once, I'm probably going to say it multiple times. So then just listen for that next time you hear me talking. But in all seriousness, this would be huge for Mike Woodson. I'm serious because like we've talked about it before. He hasn't had the time to build the relationships for this class. I think his time to like his come out party for that would be 2023. And I think you see that already in the making a little bit, like him starting to make some relationships, him getting in on some guys that IU would not have been on, like kind of some out of state guys. But if he gets Schifino, obviously I'm assuming he'll hit the transfer portal hard, and there's going to be guys that come back for another year. That's pretty good for Woodson. That's really good actually. But in all seriousness, you got to get the names on the back of the jerseys, man. That would be so cool. Yeah.
it needs to happen. I don't know why they don't have it at this point. It's they need a revamp of the uniforms, and people have been begging for it.
Yeah.
And want it very badly. So hopefully that, maybe Scott Dolson will listen up. Maybe he leaves Adidas and goes to the better group, which is Nike. I doubt that happens, but
whoa, I can't believe you said it.
They can't do that because they're a soccer school. So
yeah, soccer's pretty big.
I'm Nike at the core, man. I can't. Adidas really just it does not. It's not good.
I'm all Adidas shoes and New Balance shoes until I get to like basketball shoes. Then I'm going Nike always. But well, all right. Here's a conversation to have. Play for the name on the front, not on the back. I think that's kind of their mantra a little bit.
That's fine. I get that.
But it's stupid, but that's their corny mantra. Yeah. It's very corny. But how many old people? So we're on Twitter and we're on Instagram, we're on TikTok. So we see the views of the kind of more progressive, new age, modern opinions. We're not on the message boards. I guarantee if they made that change,
there'd be some people angry about it.
There's going to be riots in the street of Bloomington about that. They're the Bob Knight fans. Oh my gosh! Can you imagine?
There's some things about the program in general that are like outdated. Like IU student section, if you really think about it, like should do it like Duke does, and they've got like the bleacher seats behind the goals and then on the sidelines. Mm-hmm. That's where the students should be, not just some random section mixed in with everybody else. Like it really doesn't make sense. The atmosphere would be better. They do a bunch of the tradition stuff, which is cool. With Martha the Mop Lady at the beginning, that's obviously awesome. Mm-hmm. But the playlist at the games is the same stuff. They play the same stuff in between timeouts. It's like we need to like revamp this a little bit. I'm hoping so.
And I get it, but it gets stale. It does get stale, like from that actual perspective. Like I get you want to relive the memories of the Bob Knight era, whatever. But
let's move on, folks. It's time.
Yes.
It's time to move on.
You can do that in different ways. Like Kentucky hasn't forgot about, the Rupp era, the Joby Hall era, even the Patino era. They haven't forgot. But they've moved on and they're more modern. They do modern stuff to keep up with the times.
It helps with recruiting. Like all these things matter.
Like
especially with NIL and stuff like that, and the names on the back of the jersey, like that matters. Like being able to buy a jersey with the name on the back versus nothing, that matters.
It's kind of to the point, and I get there's some bleed over. Like obviously, even with you, like. We were born after, maybe not. It's kind of close. I don't know the exact year he was fired, but the year Knight was done with Indiana, a lot of these recruits weren't even alive. Yeah, and we're kind of still living in that era, and that's a crazy thing to think about. I know it bleeds over. People still care about that, especially kids from Indiana, but. There comes a time. Yes, exactly.
That's sad. Like, and that needs to change. I get Green, had a couple good years, but like, I don't think they're pitching that with recruits. Like, hey, our years under Tom Crean were like, like that's not like it's about like
it's not pitchable. It's not.
They're recruiting. It's all about the tradition, and I get it. That I think what they're really doing now is probably saying that. we need like Trace is like going to be the leader in this, hopefully,
Yeah.
because they're trying to carry that on, but like, modernize it and try and get it back to what it was. Like they're going to be like, you're the guy that can help get us back to the glory days and you'll be a hero, which whoever does, they will be. Like, I cannot even imagine if it ever happens and they ever win, like it's going to be in a modern day. Can you imagine the modern day IU fans like winning in that? We're going to be the most annoying fan base.
I might have to shut off the podcast. Hot and Cold will no longer record. But no, seriously, like we talk about rabid Indiana fans to Tachman, and I didn't mean it in a mean way, but I mean that's just it's what they're passionate, and like I think they're even starting to get over,
I used to be I'm one of them.
Yeah.
And it's starting to like, all right, you can only brag on IU and like defend them for so long. Like we're getting tired. Like we need something to actually like say, hey, we actually did this recently. We made a tournament run.
Yeah. It
got past the Sweet 16.
It gets weird. And I give you a lot of crap for it, but like the latest thing that you guys are hanging your hat on is like seriously is the Christian Watford shot against Kentucky. Yeah. And that's really embarrassing. Like there's a lot of programs with stuff in the more recent and I'm not saying they haven't had success. I'm just saying if something happens, they hang their hat on it and it lasts forever. Like you need to just kind of keep up with it. Just like Kentucky fans, like I'm not saying we're any better, but we brag on, like what's going on now, like the players we put in the league and like what we're going to do in the future. Like, look, we're going to have the #1 recruiting class again. And you're just like, not you, but like people like, oh, but watch this video, like watch this shotgun.
I know it's not good. And I think they're heading in the right direction.
They are for sure.
And Schifino is like a prime example. Tamar Bates, prime example of this.
Tamar Bates is, and I said it in the Tachman interview, he is going to be like the picture of this kind of revolution. Like if it kind of happens, he's going to be the name everybody's like, yeah, but he started it. Like
I think it is happening.
Yeah.
Now wins have to follow, but the recruiting, they're getting guys that are going after guys that, I mean, they just wouldn't go after these guys.
Mm-hmm. So. It means something. Like coaches aren't dumb. They're not going to throw their hat in the ring of a kid, of a top 15, top 10 kid that they don't have any chance for. Like if you, like it's not talked about enough. Like this is for every fan. If you're listening, like if your program's logo is on like a decision graphic, that's huge for like a top 10 kid. That's huge because they considered you. Like obviously there's some programs where, they're kind of given, free passes for, just to kind of, appreciate their offers and everything, but they weren't really considering. But a lot, like 70-80% of these programs on them at one point, the player was considering, and that's a big deal. If you're actually catching the eye of one of those kids, that's a big deal, and you should appreciate that at least.
Yep.
I'm sorry, that was so patronizing, but that was a very patronizing thing from a Kentucky fan to say.
It was, but it's being brutally honest.
Yeah.
And I think everybody, even Woodson is they're holding themselves accountable and they know it needs to be done, and they're doing it. So it's hopefully good times are coming.
We will see. And that's a great way to segue into Tyler Tachman, who's going to just absolutely blow you away, and with all the headline grabbers and all the
overreactions, Good times. After one game, we're going to the Natty.
No, I'm kidding, but he made it it was very funny. He showed his journalistic integrity. He showed it when he made a disclaimer, but I don't think we've ever had a guest make a disclaimer before his answer.
Yeah.
That was
very
pretty great.
Smart about that. Yeah.
Very smart. And I loved it. He threw a couple shots. He's a very smart guy. You will realize it when you listen to it. But thank you guys for listening. Connor, thank you for joining me on this late night.
Yep. Happy to be here.
Yep. and I love you guys. And now we'd like to welcome on newly with the Hoosier Network, and honestly, just with a ton of different sites. And it's Tyler Tachman, a guy that goes to IU, covers the team way more than we do. So we're so happy to have him on. Tyler, how you doing today?
I'm doing really well. Just enjoying the view outside of my my hotel room right now. Can see some palm trees and some nice wind going by. So hopefully that paints a little bit of picture for everyone in Indiana or wherever they're listening.
Oh yeah. We'll have this up on video, but if you can't see, Tyler's rocking that new Bahama tan. He's in a climate way different than Bloomington, Indiana. So way to go, Tyler. I'm very excited for you, and I'm super jealous. But
yeah, I've been having to make sure to get on sunscreen because I gotta go the high SPF because I will burn to a crisp very quickly.
Oh yeah. So just recently, there was a tweet that came out saying that you have joined the Hoosier Network, and you're going to work with the football team, kind of help cover the football team. Now, we're friends with Griffin. We've talked to Griffin a ton of times on this show. So I just want to see if he knows that he has now added in a UNC fan in you and a Kentucky fan in me. Does he know this information, or are we just kind of sliding under the radar a little bit?
Man, I don't know. That could create a little bit of it could be problematic. I have to say, I don't know. There could be some battles on Twitter, but I'm glad to see we get a little bit of diversity in terms of fan base and coming in.
No, but you cover, even though you're a UNC fan, you cover the Hoosiers better than most people in the media, and you're just a student, and it's awesome. You're doing this at a very young age. It's a really cool thing you're doing, and I'm happy that we're now on the same network, kind of getting the same fan, so that's really cool. But I
appreciate it.
I do have a question away from Indiana, because this kind of came out, and this was a big news story inadvertently. You asked Draymond Green a question in the press conference. I do want to hear a little bit about, you could just tell the story about his response and how scared you were right after your question.
Yeah. So I had an internship with the Oregonian over the summer, and kind of around the start of USA basketball. Obviously Damian Lillard, a huge name in Portland, and he was playing on the USA team. So they kind of had a bunch of press conferences and stuff during their training camp in Las Vegas. And I was just doing a story on Damian and his decision to play in the Olympics. So there was a press conference with Popovich, him and Draymond. So I asked Popovich about Dame. I asked the question to Dame, listen to that. And then Draymond was the last person that I asked a question. And so I was like, from the perspective of someone that has tried to guard, Dame, and what makes him such a good competitor, but he kind of stopped me. He was like, hold up. He was like, I feel like you're trying to disrespect me saying trying to guard Dame. And I was just shaking. I was like, oh no, this is not how I wanted. Like, this is my first NBA press conference. This is not how I wanted to go. And then he was like, nah, I'm just playing. And he was like, can you repeat the question? But I was just shook. Like I was stuttering all over the place, like trying to ask the question, but he gave a great answer. So it turned out all right, but it was definitely interesting.
That's where the clip kind of cut short. I was really interested to hear like what you did after that, because I can't imagine, because I mean, Draymond, even though you were looking through, a Zoom screen, whatever, like Draymond is an intimidating guy, no matter how you cut it. So it was a really funny thing to see. And he kind of did you a little bit dirty, man, because although it was jokes, that he did you a little bit dirty. It was a fair question. So
yeah, I think it was just the wording. I probably could have, I was no way trying to get him as like a gotcha or like trying to roast him or anything. Right. Definitely would, if I got into a roasting battle with him, I don't think it would turn out very well for me.
It was typical Draymond fashion, I feel like.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
Like typical how he handles the media.
Yeah. I probably should have been more careful with that.
On your first day too. Oh,
that's a good experience though, I feel like, because he's probably one of the most difficult people to ask a question.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. It's definitely going from asking him questions, it gives me like just a little bit more confident to talk to like other people and ask other people questions. So
yeah, I can't
There
even
was
like already asking Popovich, Lillard, and
Yeah.
Draymond Green like questions.
That's a big.
resume.
I mean,
That's a
Popovich
resume
isn't
booster.
easy. He's not easy with reporters either. Popovich.
No,
He's one of the worst. So, I mean, Dave was by far the easiest of the three.
yeah, but there was one. I mean, Popovich got into like a little battle with one of the reporters like after they lost to Nigeria. I think
yes,
there was a little back and forth. So I was like,
Yeah, you're just trying to
but
avoid
I think
that.
it kept happening because they kept losing. And they were like,
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, they got torched by Nigeria, so I guess it kind of came back to bite Draymond that he was trying to cook me in the press conference. So
yes, yeah, I would. This has
But they
become a
got the
Draymond
gold.
slander podcast.
They got
which
the
I
gold
love.
though. So
They got the gold. But it reminded me of, I don't know if you remember this. We did an entire episode on it. It was when that Duke student reporter asked Coach K, I forgot what he asked, but Coach K just for some reason it like made an analogy and compared it to like taking an econ test. And I remember that kid because he kind of blew up after that and he's doing some great stuff with Duke. So I mean, that's just your origin story. So now you're good to go from now on.
yeah.
But go ahead.
So you're in the Bahamas, obviously, and IU's obviously playing. They had their first game yesterday, and it's so weird because there's no I guess there's no stream of this, which is disappointing because I definitely would have watched it, and I know a lot of people would have. I saw some highlights, some clips. I think they were allowed like 2-minute clips or something like that. Like it was like pretty limited. But I saw they won. The people were tweeting out the important stats. 3-point percentage, free throw percentage. That's all any IU fan ever cares about anymore. But just kind of give me the outlook on the first game. Like, what did you think of the offense, the defense? Kind of what stood out to you?
Yeah, I think kind of before I go into it, like it's important just to put a disclaimer on everything that this was one game. It was an exhibition game. Down in the Bahamas, they play again tomorrow, and we'll see what happens with that. So, I think that's kind of important to know. But based on that one game, I mean, it looked like everything that Indiana wasn't last season. Like the offense just had great movement. It was a lot of cuts, a lot of guys just flying around the baseline. There was like barely any offensive stagnancy. If Xavier Johnson was holding the ball at the top of the key for more than 5 seconds, Woodson was, waving his arm, trying to get things moving. And I think that there was a lot of questions, at least on my end, just how all these different pieces are going to work together. You have 5 new guys coming in, and plus Parker Stewart, who didn't play last season. And you're trying to take a team that was not good three-point shooting, and that wasn't good really playmaking. And that's what they needed to do in the offense that they're trying to play. And I think yesterday it all worked really well. Everything seemed to really fit together. There was multiple times where either Race or Trace had it inside and they drew the defense in, kicked it out, a couple of swings, someone hit a 3. If it was single coverage, they, bullied it inside. So, I think it was about as good of a first game as you could have possibly wanted. And on the defensive end, the rotations were good. The communication seemed pretty good as a whole. There were a couple breakdowns, a couple easy dunks, but I think Parker Stewart really stood out to me on the defensive end. He just had great energy. He was in the passing lanes. He drew at least one charge. He was just kind of all over the place, disrupting BC Mega. So, and Miller Kopp looked really good too, just kind of a steady veteran presence. He brought a ton of energy with Tamar Bates. But like I said, this was a very small sample size, and I don't think that we should, blow this out of proportion. But just looking at one game and what they did, if this is the potential of what they can be, I think that is a very promising sign.
Yeah. You said Race and Trace, so I know they started together. And some people were questioning that, especially when Woodson got hired, and he really emphasized that 4-out, 1-in. Was it a 4-out, 1-in offense when they were both on the floor, or was it still kind of those two kind of in the paint together?
Yeah, it was the 4-out, 1-in. And I think what made it work was that there was it was a lot of movement. So it wasn't someone really just camping in the paint at all times. You had guys wheeling in and out. There was some dribble handoffs, and if it was Ray setting a screen, he'd loop back down. Trace would move in and out, and I think one of the big things off that too is that on those dribble handoffs, which is something that was, present during Archie Miller's time here, but these dribble handoffs were more get the ball and go downhill really quickly. It was there was an intent to it. It wasn't let's get it and just kind of come off of it and see what the defense is giving it. It was Xavier Johnson taking it with a full head of steam, trying to throw it down on someone's head. He tried to dunk on one of the 6'10" forwards. He just came flying down the lane, and he got blocked and kind of went flying to the ground. But I thought it kind of spoke for his fearlessness and just kind of the overall aggression of Indiana on the offensive end.
That's extremely good to hear, honestly. Like, I'm a little bit relieved just hearing all this. I hope Sam is like worried. I know he isn't too worried about Indiana though yet. So one quick thing on
just some
ahead,
games. I mean, like, look, it's a breath of fresh air, and I'm rooting for a good Indiana team because I want a rivalry. I'm thinking in terms of best for the podcast, and that would be best for the podcast. If it's another down year for Indiana, that would not be good for the podcast. So I'm rooting for them to get good, just not too good. So
that's fair.
Say something good
defensively, was there any zone at all? I know, Woodson's background in the NBA, there's a lot of zone usage. Was there any zone usage?
There was no zone. And I know that in the spring, that was something he mentioned that he wasn't opposed to potentially using at some point. So if he wanted to switch up some looks, there was a couple of times they went with some full court pressure, but it was just man. And once BC Mega inbounded it, everyone kind of dropped back. But it was some brief man-to-man pressure or full court pressure. So I guess that was a little bit of a different look that we maybe haven't seen as much of.
Yeah.
What about the pack line? Was there any pack line defense in this game?
What is the pack line?
Yeah. Yeah, that's what Mike Woodson said that I think it was in May. Someone mentioned that in a Zoom call, and he asked what it was. So I think we can put that vocabulary far behind us.
Oh gosh. Give me one standout that people wouldn't necessarily like think of from this game.
Jordan Geronimo. I think that he just from all the guys, I mean, Tamar Bates played really well, and Miller Kopp did, and Trace led the way in scoring. But Jordan Geronimo, I think, was maybe some a performance that maybe some people would have overlooked that were there at the game. He led the team with 9 or 10 rebounds, and he had 5 offensive rebounds. There was one possession where he had 2 offensive rebounds, and he kept the ball alive. And I mean, he's 6'6", 6'7". He was going up against guys that were 6'10". And I mean, Mega, just watching them warm up, like, they were huge. And Indiana was already without their 2 true centers, and Michael Durr and Logan Duncombe both out with injuries. And Geronimo a lot of what Indiana was doing was simply just out hustling BC Mega. They just had more energy. Like, BC Mega just looked slow. They looked just kind of out of it, and Indiana looked the exact opposite. And that's, I think, was a large part, especially on the boards. They had a 3 rebound advantage despite being smaller, was in part due to Jordan Geronimo. He just had a lot of energy and was very aggressive trying to go up and get rebounds.
You mentioned him in your answer just briefly, but there's a large unknown on this team, and he's obviously became probably the guy that people are most excited to see, and it's Tamar Bates. So just talk a little bit about his game, or yesterday, today, whatever, and just how well what he does well on the court, what he doesn't, because there's a lot of people that have just never really seen him play.
Yeah, he makes some tough shots. There's a couple that he had curling off of screens, kind of fading away. So, I mean, some of the shots he was making weren't easy. He had a 3 from the top of the key that was an open look, and it was clean, and he knocked it down. It looked very good for for as much as Indiana hasn't been able to make open shots in the past couple of years. That's surely a promising sign. And then there was one play defensively that really stood out to me. I think this was in Inside the Halls highlight package, but he was denying the ball on the wing, just stole the ball out of the air, took it the length of the court and he made a very athletic move to kind of scoop the ball up and in. So I think right now, him coming off of the bench, obviously right now the lineup can change a lot
right
come the start of the season, but I think the starting lineup right now probably has enough scoring, and having him as a guy, a spark plug off the bench that can shoot it, probably, it could be a good idea for Indiana. Obviously, maybe he could get in the starting lineup and they might move things around. But, I think for a first game, he looked very comfortable and very poised. And he brings great energy too. He's a high energy guy. He talks a lot. I think that's probably what stood out to me the most, is just as a freshman, for how young he is. He's just very confident and very willing just to be vocal.
Just thinking about this out loud, kind of, I know, X and Parker Stewart were the two backcourt guys in the starting lineup. I'm guessing it was Rob and who we were just talking about off the bench. So then who?
Mar Bates.
Yeah, it's Mar Bates. Totally. I was like, Jesus. I've got Lander on my mind. Like, Lander, Did he play? Did he get a lot of minutes? Like, is he I'm kind of just thinking out loud, will he get squeezed out potentially with the five guards? Yeah,
he played the least out of all the scholarship players. I'm trying to look. I have the stats here. He played 7 minutes. So he played the least out of all of the scholarship players, and he really only got time at the end of the first half and end of the second half. So it was mostly just Xavier Johnson and Rob Finney running point guard for a majority of the game. But for the time that he was on the court, he looked good. He scored two baskets. He made a nice kind of crafty move getting to his left and making a layup, which I know last year was a little bit of an issue of him making layups, and you could tell that was just him really getting in his head. But I think Xavier Johnson is going to be a huge asset for him. He said that he's really trying to take him under his wing, and Xavier Johnson, a guy who played 3 years at Pitt, 3 years in the ACC. He's played over 80 games. He has a ton of experience. So Lander has the opportunity to learn from him and Rob Finney, who are just very veteran guards. But it'll be interesting to see, with those 3 point guards, if one of them kind of gets squeezed out of the rotation at some point, or if you can play both of them at the same time.
Yeah. Sorry, fellas. I'm a little rattled, just letting you guys know. Just had to move venues here. Parents are trying to sell their house. Someone just showed up with their realtor. I'm like, that's like stumbling on questions and moving. I'm like, my mom's like walking in. I'm like, oh my God, are you kidding me? I'm like muting myself. So sorry about that. I should be good now.
Look, Tyler, if you don't know, this is the beauty of hot and cold. So what just happened, it's not very new, but now that we're starting to get into the visual game of YouTube and TikTok and all this stuff, people are starting to see it. So we've tried to talk over it and not let it happen, but I might as well let it go now. He just teleported. I wasn't going to comment on it, but he just teleported outside. He went mute, camera off, outside. And I was like, that was the wildest thing I've seen. But good stuff, Connor. You're back with us.
So it's sort of like a little bit of musical chairs of the podcast world, it seems like.
It happens occasionally. I'm now sitting outside. I have a sweatshirt on because I had that on inside. It's like 80 degrees. I'm going to be sweating by the end of this episode. So
that was great. That was great, Connor. But you kind of mentioned Xavier Johnson in the ACC, and now he's kind of moving into another elite conference, and that is the Big Ten. Obviously, the Big Ten this year, we're not expecting it to be like it was last year. We're not expecting it to be the same competition as it was. We're not saying it's going to be terrible, but it's a lot different. And with this new and improved IU team, I know you just said disclaimer, one game, whatever, but from what you know, from watching that game, from the personnel on the team, where do you think they end up in this new Big Ten?
Man, I mean,
That's a tough question. I know.
That is a tough
Give us their
question.
ceiling. If you don't want to give us like a full on prediction, like maybe that'd be an easier answer, just like what they could get to.
I mean, the thing when I just look at the roster, I mean, they have the pieces. They have the pieces to be a good team, and this was kind of the same thing in the Archie Miller era. It was like they had the guys and they just never put it together. I think, this year's roster is probably more talented than last year's, but if they can continue to build off of this, and Mike Woodson said after the game that he was happy to see how much they absorbed over the last 2 months. And if this is them just starting to absorb stuff, then I mean, I think that they could potentially be near the top as a ceiling, near the top of the Big Ten. Now that, I'm not trying to do a hot take or anything. I know this is the hot and cold pod. I'm not trying to no hot or cold takes. I think that's best case scenario, that they have a chance to be at the top of the league. That's relying on a lot of different things and a lot of developments. And if they can continue to grow together, guys stay healthy. But I guess that's as much of a prediction as I'm willing to kind of take a leap on right now.
That's a headline. That was a headline right there.
What's their floor then? Is it crazy for me to say that I think their floor is like a last four in? Like I think they should make the tournament. Right? Like I feel like that's their floor.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, you could have the same conversation last season. Should Indiana be a tournament team? For sure. They should make the tournament. They have an All-American. They have 2 experienced guards. But we know that didn't turn out the way that we thought. And even if we had that same conversation with 6 games to go in the season, we probably would have been saying the same thing after they beat Minnesota. Yeah. It's like, look, win 2 of these next couple of games and they're in the tournament, and instead they lose whatever they lost
a lot
6.
of money, because I would have bet on Indiana to make the tournament, probably just because I'm a crazy IU fan.
But the way you phrased that question, Connor, was the most unsure thing. You were like, is it like crazy for me to say they should be in the tournament or what?
I can't tell if I'm being like biased anymore. Like my expectations are, it's like I'm a little gun shy now after these last 4 years. Can't make very many bold predictions.
That's fair. All right. I'll give from an outside perspective. I know Tyler's kind of an outside perspective, but he's so close with the team. It's hard for him to, say like they won't be in the tournament. But from an outside perspective, I think, I mean, this is hard because Torres kind of convinced me. Aaron Torres, he's a friend of the podcast, Tyler. He kind of convinced me that Mike Woodson is just a dog. He calls him Mike effing Woodson. And he just convinced me that he's a dog. So I'm on the train that they should be in the tournament. I think their ceiling is a 6 or 7 seed, but I mean, their floor is, I think it could be a repeat of last year. That could be their floor, if I'm being honest, but I think they'll fall somewhere in the middle of that. If I had to give a prediction right now, they'd be an 8, 9, 10 seed. So is that fair enough?
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I mean, I think if that's how it pans out, I'm sure Indiana fans would have no problem with that, especially because, look, I mean, it kind of starts with Trace Jackson Davis coming back, because when Mike Woodson gets hired, there's still a lot of uncertainty. You guys in the portal, you don't know what's going to happen. And there's not necessarily a whole lot of expectations to win immediately, but Trace comes back and that kind of changes the entire energy and really helps him gain a lot of momentum. And now it becomes, all right, there's probably an expectation to win year 1, to get in the tournament year 1.
No, I'll let you go in a second, Connor, but I have something to say. This is kind of an off the cuff question. Do you think, I don't remember when we had you on last. I don't remember if it was pre Mike Woodson or post Mike Woodson hiring, but
I think it was pre. I think it was pre.
Yeah, I think we were talking about Brad Stevens. So I think that was pre. But
don't bring that up. Don't bring that name up anymore. Come on.
Did Mike Woodson kind of screw himself by doing too good too early? Because like so many guys went in the transfer portal. You're expecting at least, 3 or 4 of them to leave. You're expecting a Race, a Christian, obviously Armand left and Jerome left. But do you think he did too good and brought expectations too fast? Is that a like serious concern?
I
Is
mean,
that
for
for,
him,
I was gonna say, I thought that was for me for a second.
No, it's for Tyler. It's for Tyler. You
Yeah.
can comment too after Connor. But yeah, Tyler, what do you think?
I don't think so, because one of his first priority really when he got hired was to get all the guys back in from the transfer portal. So it wasn't like he was like, you know what, we're just going to do a total roster overhaul.
Yeah.
I don't know any of these guys. I've never coached them. They can go and do their own thing if they want to. Like he wanted every one of those guys to stay. That was his goal. And I'm sure Mike Woodson's not coming into Indiana saying, I don't know if I really want to win year one. I'm sure he's coming into Indiana saying,
okay.
Let's shock the Big Ten. So I don't think that he is just his demeanor and the way he carries himself. I don't think that he is really worried about expectations or how he is perceived. I think he is kind of just very locked into his own mindset and how he sees things. So I don't think necessarily like outside influences are really going to push him one way or the other.
That question really needed some workshopping now that I think about it a little bit, because it was it was a stupid question on surface, but I mean, you see from Indiana fans are pretty rabid, and that's not in a bad way at all. They're passionate.
What are you saying? What are you? No, I'm just joking.
Yeah, exactly. They're passionate. They're very passionate fan base, and you give them a little and they'll take a lot. And you saw it in many different cases when I think that Romeo team beat UNC. And that was kind of Archie's coming out party. They ended up not making the tournament. And it was just, they gave a little and they kind of just, I'm not going to call Indiana fans crazy because they are our main source of fans. But I'm just saying it's a good thing they're passionate. It's tough on coaches, though. I will say that. Connor, can you agree with me on that part of it?
Yes, I can. But I think for him to start, like, he needed to win the fans over. And
he won the fans.
Like he did, and he needed to, especially after the reaction initially of the fans for I reacted very poorly to the hire. Just on the surface, saw the Twitter notification. I reacted, as I've said, not well. So I needed to be won over as well. Like, I convinced myself pretty quickly because I was going to with whoever it was. But once he started getting guys back, he gets Tamar Bates. I was like, all right, all in. I'm all in. And hopefully he continues this and proves me right with a future recruit here coming up here in the next 10 days.
Good transition. Yeah.
Top 5 just got released.
Yep. Jalen Hood-Schifino. What do you think? Am I saying that name right, by the way?
I think so. I'm not really sure.
All right. So he just released his top 5, Connor. I'm kind of stepping on your question, but
no, go ahead.
He just released his top 5. Obviously, Indiana is a part of it. He is giving his decision on 8/24, and he's only taken one visit, correct?
I think one visit, maybe 2. I know he took one to IU's. IU's the most recent. I think he might have visited Tennessee as well.
Okay. So, Tyler, from what you know, from what you can say, what is your opinion on this recruitment?
I mean, I think it's, a guy that could be huge for the class. Right now they have Caleb Banks and CJ Gunn, and I don't necessarily put a ton of stock into the recruiting rankings, but both of them are not as kind of high in the recruiting rankings right now. And Hood-Schifino is a little higher up there. And like I said, I take that with a grain of salt, but I think that he'd be a really good addition. Looks like a guard that already is pretty physically developed. Like he looks like he has a strong foundation, just in terms of his physicality. And I've said this before too. I mean, this is not discounting him or any other recruits, but I just think with the transfer portal and everything, there's just so much less of an emphasis on the fresh incoming freshmen and guys coming out of high school, because when you can go get a guy like Xavier Johnson, who's played 3 years in the ACC, he can immediately come in. He has the experience. You can plug him into the lineup, and he just is a lot more acclimated to the college game than high schoolers. I think that just has kind of changed the kind of recruiting like sphere. And, that's not saying don't go after really good high school guys. I just think that if you miss out on a guy here or there, it's not going to be as big of an impact when you have guys like Kofi Coburn, entering the transfer portal, Dawson Garcia. When you essentially just have a free agency every single year, you can get the best guys in the country. I think that trying to get a guy out of high school, if you miss on him, is not, as much of a blow to the program as in the past.
Connor, do you see what he just did there?
Did Kentucky get Kofi Coburn?
You see, he listed the guy that Kentucky lost on and that UNC got. That was great radio right there. That was real. That was on your feet movement right there, Tyler. I really appreciated that.
Yeah, I'm glad you caught on to that.
Oh, yeah.
I was trying to do it very discreetly. I didn't know if you'd noticed.
All IU fans know Dawson Garcia pretty well because he was at one point an IU target, and I don't know. I was very upset when he didn't come to IU. I was like, he would be a good fit for their team, and I know he kind of had a little bit of a rocky start to his college career, but that was definitely a big pickup for them.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, Connor, is that all you wanted to ask about your Indiana Hoosiers?
That's it for now, man. I mean, it's only one game, so I don't want to freak out either. I'm trying not to, I've watched the highlight video 3 or 4 times, but trying not to freak out.
Yeah, I think even Tamar said that after the game. I think the camera caught him saying something like that. I saw that video. Yeah, I'm telling you, Tamar Bates is going to be a rock star. Whether he does good or bad before the season starts, he's going to be a rock star to everybody.
I can't wait for Hoosier Hysteria, because he's going to be like, which I don't. Hopefully it changes, because no offense to Archie, with Kareen, it was a big show. He had Seth Greenberg in to host it one year, and there's dunk contests, and then Archie came in. It was, as a fan, it was a little boring. It was not as entertaining. Maybe Woodson spices it up a little bit. I know Archie Miller having a boring Hoosier Hysteria is so shocking now, but Tamar has so much swagger. I hope he and Mike Woodson do a dance together out in the middle of the floor or something, because that would be amazing.
That would be great. That video would live in infamy with Hot and Cold for sure.
I'm pretty sure Aaron Torres would have to fly to Bloomington to get that on camera.
Oh, it would be great. It would be great. But Tyler, thank you for coming on. I'm happy you're with the Hoosier Network now. We're all in the same kind of deal, so we can get you on whenever you can, whenever you want. You're always welcome in.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me anytime.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And you're covering football. If you ever want to cover college basketball for them, just let me know, and I got you on. All right.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, well, I just wanted to, so I'm covering football for the Hoosier Network, but still basketball for Inside the Hall. So
yes, cool. Basketball for Inside the Hall. I forgot to plug that because you're on so many different sites right now. It's crazy, man. And congratulations. You're doing so much at a young age, man. It's awesome.
I appreciate it now, but big up to you guys too, getting picked up by the Hoosier Net. Very, very happy to see that and see some of your hard work paying off.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, thank you,
Appreciate
man.
It, man.
Have a good one. Hey, put on that sunscreen though.
I'll make sure to.
Bye.